my Juicy Co-creators, Lilou here. I'm in Toulouse, south of France, with Suzanne, the daughter of Barbara Max Hubbard. Whoa, I love it. I love interviewing the kids of those wonderful beings. How amazing is it? You grew up around Barbara.
I know. People have always asked me, what is it like growing up with my mother? But
I want to know. That's my next question.
I know, but of course, as a child, you know nothing else.
Yeah.
And so it seems completely normal. And it wasn't until I left as a teenager that I really understood how original my upbringing has been. You know, I grew up with her idea of that we're all one planet and that we're being born as universal humans. But of course, when I started to talk to my friends, they
like, what are you talking about?
Right? What are you talking about? And meanwhile, myself, I wasn't really inclined to pursue concepts, even though I was born in a very intellectual family. I loved nature, and in fact, I loved everything that my mother really wasn't attracted to. I liked the simple things: motherhood, gardening, weaving, and in the very beginning, when I started to do these things, my mother would come and visit me, and she would just fall asleep at my house because she said it was so relaxing to be where I was. But having grown up with my mother, you know, she always would tell us, and there's five of us. I'm the oldest of the 5 children.
Daughters, huh?
Well, no, there's 3 girls and 2 boys, but unfortunately, one brother has passed. You know, so there's 4 of us now. Uh-huh. But she has taught us that everything that inspires you has a greater importance than the thing that you're focusing on. So in other words, my weaving and mothering and gardening wasn't just important as those focuses, but they are telling you, they're like a language telling you about how you are one. Mm-hmm. And how it's the source of understanding what she calls the universal human, a part of you. So I became very inspired by that, Lilou, and I started to ask myself, what is it about just being human, being alive, and having a life that connects you with that source of understanding that you're one. Mm-hmm. And as I said, she taught me to really look at everything that I was doing as kind of a learning and a teaching. Mm-hmm. And I started to use my weaving as a learning about integration and wholeness. And when you weave and when you mother, you always keep the whole in mind with each detail of each process. You're not limited to just getting the job done. It's how you do it.
We have the dogs too that want to be part of this conversation behind us. Can you hear them?
Yes, the nature. Yes, the many voices of the one.
Yes.
So to fast forward, it's taken me about 15 years. I've used the weaving and mothering to develop what I call an organic approach to conscious evolution. And what that means is using parts of being human and of being alive as a medium and a pathway to resonate with what my mother is calling the one, and then integrating your life with it. Mm-hmm. And so there are various discoveries that I've made. One, that we have, as human beings, many levels of perception. There's experiential levels of sensing and feeling. And I started to understand those perceptions are, and the rain's coming.
And the rain is coming. We're going to have to maybe go under a tree.
Right. But anyways, those senses and feelings are the ways to resonate with the universal self, but we also can imagine and think of what that means. So
rain. Okay, part 2 is going to be under a tree. My Juicy Co-creators, this is part 2. It just rained, and now we're under a tree, and this is just unfolding, and this is part of life.
And this is how it always is. You know, there isn't any script. That's one thing that I understood, is that if you're evolving into an expression of a universal human, it hasn't been done, but it's happening all the time because it is a part of us. So, so I really started to think that, you know, every single thing that you're doing, whether you are a mother, you know, or whatever kind of job you are, you don't have to be a special person. In fact, that life that you are leading is in relationship with that source of wisdom that my mother spoke about. So I'm writing, I've finished this book called The Unwritten Book, Your Life Book Journal. And the unwritten book is symbolic of that source of wisdom of the universal self. But the unwritten book is also what used to be called the collective unconscious, of that sense of unity and the unity of consciousness. And I started to think, well, maybe the reason that it's unconscious is because of the way we see life. And being a mother and a weaver has taught me to use more of my human experience, you know, my intuition and my sense and my emotions, those experiences of it first, to kind of get that relationship with the whole, and then allow it to bubble up into not just an imagination, but how to use my life as a mother, as a wife, as a pathway of being it. You see what I'm saying? So I started to...
I'm getting there. I want to hear more.
Well, I started to see that no job that anybody does is one that can't be transformed into two pathways. One, as a way to be in relationship with this experience of oneness, which I call the unwritten book. Because the truth of it is that as human beings, we are related and we are in relationship with it. So why couldn't anything that we do be a spiritual pathway? And why couldn't anything that we do also be an expression of living life as a sacred act? And just, I've been my own guinea pig with understanding this, and raising my children in this way. And what I have found is that again, doing those more humble jobs, those what one might call the mundane jobs, aren't that way at all. They're very potent, and life starts to be unfold effortlessly, because that's a quality of that source of oneness. It's not static. It actually does things in the world. And one of my sisters said to me, Suzanne, you do the most of anyone who does nothing. You know? And what she meant was it's being open to that experience, responding to it in whatever life it is that you have, and it's a living life as a sacred act, which is giving to life. And there seems to be this dynamic that life gives back to you and opportunities open up. And then I said to myself, you know, it dawned to me, well, why isn't that a form of conscious evolution? In other words, to become aware of that relationship, to develop experience and emotion as your feelers, you know, for that resonance, and then integrating the rational thinking, so it's imbued with that experience, and but most importantly, being it, And when you're being it, you're not separate from anything else. And I must say that, Lilu, just coming here and meeting you is an example of it, because I said about this book, I don't want to go the traditional way of the marketing and things like that, because it's going to unfold in the spirit of what I'm writing. And
organically.
Organically. It's basically daring to show up, as experience.
Isn't that the most sometimes difficult? Daring to show up.
Well, what I call it is seeing the path blind. That's what I call it. It is being guided by that sense of oneness. It's the unwritten book, and responding to those patterns of wholeness, whatever it might look like, and then it brings in the other pieces. Why? Because you're not separate from me. You see what I'm saying? Yes. And why I'm not separate from you. So there's that other understanding of the ethic of reciprocity, and you can see it in nature. It's like every little creature lives its own life and fulfills its biological life cycle, but in its fulfilling, it also gives to the whole. Like a little squirrel, it gathers its nuts, but it also plants the forest. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And as human beings, when we're aware of being with that same process as the squirrel is as nature, and we give back by consciously living the truth of the unwritten book, then life also gives back to us, just like it does the lilies of the field, that don't spin or weave. They're radiantly arrayed. And we're the same way, you see. And
we have totally forgotten.
We have totally forgotten. So we have totally forgotten, and yet we know it at certain levels. And so that's what this book is about. It's
the resonance, do I hear?
It's the resonance, but it's also discovering your particular way of experiencing it, because you are connected. And it might be, for example, an awareness of having a universal truth. It might be the experience of that you have what I call a golden thread life calling, that there's something that you knew when you were very young, that you had a unique purpose, but our traditional academic educations really just teach the rational process. They don't teach to use these deeper understandings, but it's the deeper understandings that guide us.
The tree just spoke.
that guide us to our golden thread life calling, that weaves our relationships together, our life together. And so there's no separation between how you live and whatever your job is, and this whole that is present in each one of us. And
every moment, every single moment.
At every moment. And so at the end of the book, it's whatever people have written, all the connections they've made, that is the book. I call it an artifact, a tool. It's a weaving tool that guides the weaving of your different experiences. Plus, I've integrated scientific understandings of this, as well as mystical understandings. But the main thing is anchoring all of those external understandings that usually speak about this reality as being separate from us, but anchoring it with the way you relate to it. And so then you ask yourself, when you make that connection, then what? And that's it, you see?
And so you're looking for a publisher. We're calling out for a publisher for this book.
Right, the unwritten book, your life book journal.
Let me tell you, it's gonna do something to the world, because the wind is definitely showing us.
Right.
Its strength, its beauty. Thank you so much for sharing, for being out, and for daring to speak your truth. What a courageous act. I'm always moved by that.
Well, thank you so much, Lilu, and thank you for everybody for your interest and also your love. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Much love, my beautiful co-creators from Toulouse, from windy and rainy Toulouse.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much. I love being here, and I love you. Thank you, Lilu.
I love you. Bye.